Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Level Up with Living Houston. Today is a very special day for me because I have one of my favorite agents that is very dear to my heart. And he is here today to talk a little bit about his story. And we're going to go into all the different multifaceted aspects of how he came to be a real estate agent. Yes. So welcome, Travis. We're so excited to have you. So, I think it's really cool that I have known you for, 10 years?
About 10 years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I met you originally because you were friends with my daughter.
Yeah.
You guys went to school together.
Just basically my first friend that I made when I moved schools.
I love it.
Yes.
And you guys were in junior high, weren't you? Or going into high school?
It was high school, I think sophomore year,
okay.
High school.
Yes, I still remember the first time you came over to the house and I met you. I was like, who is this fabulous person?
It was Lexi's birthday. Yes.
Was it?
It was. Yes.
Was it her Halloween party?
It was her Halloween party.
Her birthday's next to Halloween, so she always has for a while there, she would have we would combine Halloween and her birthday. It was so fun. It was a costume party. Time. Got it. I didn't even realize that was the first time.
Yes.
So, and then you and I instantly bonded. Yes.
Two Geminis clicking together.
Very, very true. Yes, we've known that we were both Geminis from the beginning.
Yeah.
So you go through high school, and I know very similar to my daughter and even myself, high school wasn't the best time for you.
Wasn't the most enjoyable experience.
Okay. I hear that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
But what I love is that once high school is not everything. When you're in it, high school seems like
it's the world.
Yes. And then you get out of it and you're like, wait.
There's a whole nother world
that's behind me. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you graduate and you get out of high school, and what'd you do? Kind of float around for a little bit?
I went to the Art Institute of Houston I went there for photography for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that it was something I enjoyed more than it was something that I wanted to do.
Got it. Because, your first love is photography, right?
It is.
And it still is.
It still is something I loved. And I was doing senior pictures and stuff in my senior year. And then I went there and then I was just like, I don't know if this is something that I really, truly want to do for forever.
I remember sitting down with you at one point and looking at the numbers to see if you really wanted to make a career out of it, what were you going to have to do and build to make a sustainable living? Because you can only charge so much for photo shoot. Yeah. Right? And it was just kind of maybe.
And also what I wanted, because I wanted to do fashion photography, but it was just kind of what you had that was bringing some income. It wasn't just, it wasn't that. So it was just kind of.
I would assume doing fashion photography, that's something where you need to go New York or LA.
I mean, it wasn't really happening here for me at least. Mm-hmm. And
that's a big mountain to climb to go there. You have to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of stuck in a situation. So left.
You had your love, you knew what you wanted to do. It didn't seem possible. So you were just kind of making ends meet for a while.
Yeah. So then I was working at a restaurant for a little bit and
waiting tables.
Yeah, didn't really care for that for so long,
Yeah, that's definitely a means to an end, for sure.
Yeah, and so then.
So then fast forward a little bit, and you were how old? And you came to the goals workshop that I had.
This was, I think, in 2019.
Okay, the goals workshop that you came to though was during COVID, correct? Wasn't it during COVID?
I think it was because it was in November.
No, because it was the house I'm living in now that you attended it, and that was 2020.
It was. Yeah. Okay, actually it was.
Because I remember I had to have it at my house because there was nowhere that I could have a large gathering.
Yeah.
So I do the goals workshop every year in November where I'm force everybody to get their goals together for the upcoming year.
Yes.
And I ran into you somewhere. And
I was like, can I come?
Yeah.
Because at first I
hadn't seen you in so long.
I wasn't even an agent or anything. I was just like, can I just come?
Absolutely.
Just be there. And you're like,
yeah, because it's the second day of the workshop is real estate centric, but for the most part, everything we talk about can be applied to anything.
Yes.
So I saw you, hadn't seen you in forever. I was like, oh, I'm doing this workshop. You should come. You showed up.
I did. I learned so much. And it's crazy because I thought it was all going to be like real estate stuff. But of course, the first day, it was like so much self-help that I like realized, or like I got together. Because, like there's so many times where you're just like, I want to get this together, but you just don't really make the time for it.
Yeah.
And I feel
you
like
don't,
I had
nail the plan down.
Yeah. It's just like everyone thinks about like, oh, I need to do this to that, but you don't have like a set day that you want to like do that. And I was able to, the first day I'll never forget, it
Absolutely.
was just, we had a lot of time, and it was intense in sometimes, but it was just like
is.
what you need.
It is
was like
intense. Yeah.
breaking that comfort like zone. I'm very a person where it's just like, I feel I like to feel comfort in a way.
You want to feel comfort while you're stepping outside of your comfort zone.
But
that's actually a pretty good environment for it, because you're in an environment you're protected. You're with somebody that's loving, that's leading the way.
Space that you
but
feel.
You're being pushed.
Yes. But it's in a safe way. It's not more of in a way that was just like, this is overwhelming, I can't take it. It was just more of like, this is something that you probably could not push yourself to do if it was just you.
Correct.
You know?
Even for myself. Like, I can push people, but then I have to be pushed too.
Yeah.
I remember, one of the main things I remember still to this day, because I can see it like it was yesterday, exactly where you were sitting.
Yeah.
And you sat at the end of one of the sofas, and you sat there the whole time completely silent.
I didn't want to speak. I was so nervous. Everyone else was talking and everything. I was just so nervous. But
were you just absorbing?
Yeah, it was just like, I was just getting everyone else's information and everything. But it was just still, like, I was still learning, but it was just like.
One of the things you texted me afterwards when I checked in with you that stuck with me, and I remember sharing it with my staff and everything, because when I'm teaching stuff like that, I'm like, do I really need to be doing this? Is it really making a difference?
No, it was.
And you said, I had never heard all the stuff you said. You were like, I'd never heard anyone say that to me before.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was speaking to the group, but it's crazy to me. Like, that's what they should be teaching in school.
With me. Yeah.
Like, imagine if you had been hearing that stuff from the time you were 14 or 15.
I wish they would say.
I know.
You
So it clicked.
It really did.
You left. You came the second.
Came back the second day. And I think after the second day, I was just like, I think that this is something that I want to do. And I'll never forget, you're like, well, let's come to the back. Let's have like a conversation. Let's really think about it. Let's talk about it. And you kind of helped me, because it's overwhelming. There was so much information that I was being told throughout the 2 weeks that it can be overwhelming. And one thing that I did love was that you understood it. And that's one thing I've always loved, that you understand,
Because people need time to acclimate a little bit. I feel like your higher self knows what you want.
Yes.
And it's like your earthly self is down here talking yourself out of it. And you have to wait for your earthly self to like catch up here.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes a year. Sometimes it takes a month or a day. It just depends. Everybody's different. But with something like that, you did have to process so much information.
And I love how you gave it was a week of processing everything
and marinating
together.
on it.
Yeah.
Everything.
It works out. It was so perfect.
So we got through the holidays, or not even. And what's so crazy also is that was COVID. And I was like, I had just started the brokerage and then COVID hit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to keep it alive for like a year somehow. And then we were about to move into, it was a transitional office location for Living Houston.
Yeah.
You met me there. No furniture.
Yeah.
We were in an empty room. We sat on the ground.
Yes.
And what I love about it is it's like, shit does not have to be perfect for you to move forward or for you to start. Just fucking start.
There's no perfect time to start something, is what I realized.
Exactly. And I'm such a perfectionist too. That's something I had to learn also. But I love, because I pass that advice forward to everybody else. But one of the things we discussed when I'm like, listen, I'm going to be real with you. if you want to get your license, I believe you can do it, but I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you what you're going to have to do to be successful at it.
Yes.
I don't want you to waste a year and not get anywhere and then throw all that time and money in the trash. I'm going to be real.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm down. I'll do anything I got to do. I was made for this. I've been through worse. You're all positive and everything. And then you're like, there's just one problem.
Yes.
I don't drive.
And it sounds so crazy. I say this all the time. And so many times people are like, well, have you been in a car accident or anything? And that's just not the case. It's been a fear. I've gone to like therapy for it. We're
Have
working.
you tried to get hypnotized?
I actually never tried that.
I wonder if that would work. I don't know. I would be scared to get hypnotized.
It's like it's a wonder. I've seen stories, I've seen shows and everything.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, the worst. But I also think of like, don't think of the negative, think of the positive.
Right.
But I also thought about that. But I also just think it's also just been something where it's just like, it's your mind. Your mind literally.
Yeah. Your body can do anything. It's your
Anything.
mind that you have to overcome.
And so that was something, having my real estate license, that was also just kind of like, the girls is not driving.
Right.
We need to figure out a way.
Like, and I remember being like, all right, okay, listen, let's just move
And it was
forward.
no judgment when you said it.
Move
too.
forward. Let's do what we got to do. We'll deal with each thing
find a
as
way.
it comes. And you're still living your best life. You still got your license and everything. So tell me, so right after that conversation, you had a trip planned.
I did.
Correct? Because
Yeah.
this is one of the things that we talked about that, in my opinion, I feel like this was like a
Kind of changed me.
pivotal moment, like a core
Yeah.
memory. So tell me what you embarked on like over that next 30 days.
So I knew that there was just something that I was very insecure about. It was my smile. I talk a lot. You know me. And
You
it
have a
was just,
huge smile.
I was just very always nervous about my teeth. It was just something
Your whole life, you never liked your teeth.
my whole life. And it would be these little, like things that I would do, like covering up my mouth and everything that I would do. And so I ended up going to the Dominican Republic to get my teeth done. And originally I was supposed to go with a good friend, but life happens. So
So she canceled last minute or something?
she didn't cancel. Fun fact, I showed up to her birthday dinner and she had a group of people at her like dinner. She never showed up.
So she didn't show up to her own birthday dinner.
Mind you, I was the first person to show up to the dinner. So she was like, get a table of 16. I'm like, okay, fine.
It's a large party.
Did not forget, it's a Tuesday. The place was not that busy. And so I showed up and we're waiting. Groups are coming in. And she just never showed up. So I texted her. I was like, if you can't show up to your own birthday dinner, I don't trust you to show up to going out the country.
Right.
So this was also my first time ever going out the country too. So
Was it also your first time traveling alone? Like
really? Yeah.
Like not like
Yes.
driving to Austin. It's
No,
like
yeah, like first time flying alone
right.
out the country. First time traveling out the country and first time literally alone. But I was just like, this is something that I need. It's something that I wanted. It was just something,
It's like deep down you knew if you didn't take care of that, you could not move forward.
I couldn't move forward and I couldn't do what I knew that I could do. And so I ended up going by myself. Luckily, it was an amazing time, got it done. And I feel like I tell so many people this, I was like, teeth is so important to people. And it's crazy how it
it's right on your face.
It's right on your face, and especially as someone like me that talks so much.
Right.
It was just like, my teeth are always showing.
Right.
I can't cover my mouth. It
Right.
shows insecurity.
I'm like, if you're insecure about something and you don't need to discuss it with anyone, you don't need anybody's opinion because everybody's going to be like, oh, you don't need to fix anything. Just fix what you need to fix so that you can move forward. I mean, it doesn't need to be a discussion. You don't need everybody's approval. And I remember when we were talking, you came to me, like when we first met that time in that empty office, that was a year and 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And you said, I know I want to do this. I'm committed to it. I want to get my license, but there's something I need to do first. I said, all right, go do that and then come back. And you did. You went and knocked that out. You came back and you said, now I'm ready to get my classes.
Yeah.
You did your classes.
Of the classes, the only thing, everything was fine. I got COVID
That's right.
second week that I
That's
had
right.
it. But luckily it was online. So I was still able
You pushed through.
to do
You were
it.
doing classes with COVID.
Yeah.
You did that. And waiting tables and everything else you were doing.
It was just,
But I love it. I love
can't
it.
make any excuses.
Right. Then you went and took your test.
Yes.
Did you pass the first time?
I did pass the first time.
Because not many people do. So you walked in there, passed the first time.
Was nervous. And actually, it's so funny. The place that I took it was right where my office was going to be. So maybe that's what gave me like the confidence.
That's right.
It was just like, baby, you got this.
So what I love is from the time you went, we ran into each other. You go to the goals workshop.
Yeah.
I think the goals workshop also was one of the things that prompted you to move forward with getting your teeth, right? Or had it already been scheduled?
It was not really, it wasn't much of like, I had it, like that's what I wanted to do, but I knew that this was also something I wanted to do, but I also
It was a piece
knew
of the puzzle.
It was. It was just like, that was that missing piece that I need to put that thing onto. It was just more of like, I can't be confident within myself without having it.
Well, especially a career in real estate, you're not clocking in and sitting in a cubicle all day.
Yeah.
You have got to put yourself out there, and you're going to be talking to everybody all day, every day. That's all you do. That's all real estate agents do, is constantly communicate.
And
so
if I'm not confident within myself, how is anyone going to trust them? You know?
Exactly. So you do that, you get started. Another obstacle shows up. You go to take your test, right?
Yeah.
And you had something on your record, like something so little, like minor in possession or something like that.
And I was so nervous. I remember I asked you, I was like, my background check, I'm so nervous. You're like, don't be nervous.
I'm like, let's go. Whatever. We can sit here and speculate all day, but let's just knock that shit out. And then whatever arises, we'll deal with it.
We'll deal with that.
And so they come back, check. So one of the big things is when you get your real estate license, you cannot get licensed unless you pass this criminal background check. They fingerprint you and everything. They're like, we have to make sure you're about to be going in people's houses. You cannot have a record.
Yeah.
So, but it's inevitable. Some people have stuff, they've got blemishes on their record.
Yeah.
And when it comes back, if it's minor enough, you can appeal it and get letters of recommendation. So you came to me, asked for that. Of course. Who'd you get letters of recommendation from? You got it from me and like, who else? Like your boss?
It was it was you, my old boss, and then it was someone else that like I worked with prior to. But at the same time, it's crazy. It's what your mind will think of, like, this is the end.
Yeah.
You tried all this and like you can't do it. But
my
really,
dreams are being crushed.
And that's why I thank you for you, because you're just like, listen.
I remember you sat across from my desk and I was like, whatever, let's write it up.
Take a breath.
Let's go.
It's going to be fine. You don't have nothing to worry about.
So we send it in, and sure enough, they were like, okay, you're
fine.
good. You're good. It's okay. So you had some alcohol when you were 17. You'll be fine. You can still build a career. It's okay.
Exactly. And that's what I did love.
So, but what I love is that there were so many like mini obstacles that could have caused you to be like,
this is it. I'm over it.
Yeah. Like just kind of cause you to fizzle out and be like, oh, whatever. And it didn't matter. It was just, we took one thing at a time, and you finally get your license, you get started. And like most agents, a lot of new agents, the best way to get your hands dirty or get your feet wet or whatever it is when you first get your license is to practice on leases.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that apartments pay way better than a residential house lease, an apartment lease, because they pay 100% of 1 month's rent or more.
Yeah.
Versus if you represent someone that wants to rent a residential property, you make 50% of 1 month's rent is your commission. Yeah. So if you can go after apartment leases,
why not?
Even if it's somebody spending $1,500 a month on an apartment, you get a $1,500 commission.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I tell you about this and you're like, okay, I'll get started there. And right away. Yes. But
It was the nervous thing, but you know what I think that did help me in the moment was there was a vision that I saw, like I wanted to be filming, you know, because I've seen a lot of apartment locating.
Well, you're an artist.
Yeah.
And you're a photographer. You're not a stranger to the camera.
Yeah.
So you knew.
Outside though.
I know. Right. You're behind the camera.
Behind.
But I was like, let's capitalize on your strengths right now just to get you going. Like, let's get you launched. This is what I do with everybody. I sit down with you guys one-on-one. It usually ends up being like 2 hours, and I'm trying to pull your strengths out of you because I'm like, we've got to use something that you're already comfortable with. And it's perfect being in real estate. So you immediately went out and started killing it, making TikToks and reels of these gorgeous apartment complexes.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, what I did love, and it did help, was the photography in a way. If you would ask me like, oh, you can use this in another different way. Would have never, ever, ever thought of. Never thought of. But it was just more of like, I'm going to the properties. I'm meeting, you know, the leasing agents.
You're building those relationships.
And it's very important.
In real estate, you absolutely cannot build enough relationships. Like, I tell my agents, I'm like, even if you're not doing like traditional lead gen where you're sitting there doing something very specific on lead gen, just going out and building relationships is lead gen. Yeah. I mean, you just never know. You never, ever know. I always tell my kids, I'm like, your life can change in an instant. Yeah. One phone call, you know, and it's just a big, huge network and web of constantly staying positive, constantly moving forward, and just getting out there and building relationships.
Yeah.
And you just started pressing forward and doing that.
Yeah.
And tell me how you did that, but not driving. What would you do? Okay. I want to hear like behind the scenes. What were you doing?
Okay, so for starters, it turns out I was having to move. I remember. Like, I don't know.
Relocate where you
remember.
Were living.
Okay, so there was a time where I was like, I'm moving out.
Okay, yeah.
Got kicked
moving out of your mom's house.
Got kicked out. You know what? I was 24. It's about time.
Well, your mom was like moving on with her life. She was like, we're getting rid of the house and you got to go.
Exactly. So that, I feel like it kind of has helped me.
Yeah, that pushed you.
In a situation of like, gotta find a place soon. Let's go.
Right.
Which at first,
and I got to pay for it.
I'll never forget when you told me, you're like, I know this is stressful, but just think of it as a way to.
It's your next step.
Think of it as a way as it's your next step, but it's also a way to connect with the clients that you are working with. I understand of what you're going through.
Pay attention to the emotional factor that goes into moving, because to be a good real estate agent, you have to be able to understand what your client's going through.
Yes.
And I don't care how many clients say, oh, I'm not emotional. Oh, I don't take anything personal, all this stuff. I'm like, no.
When that moment comes, it doesn't matter how like it's intense. But, you know, and I will never forget, it was our one-on-one, and I was explaining everything to you. It was a time where I was just like, I can't even make like content right now. Like, I'm just like, there's so much going on. And you're like, I deal with it. I've been moving. I've crazy.
Moved so much in my life, right?
And
I get it.
I'll never forget, you were just like, just think of this, even though it is not the most enjoyable moment. It's not the most enjoyable moment, but it's something you're learning. It's something that you're like,
well, it's making you a more well-rounded professional, because
to know of like, I understand of what you're going through, of just, oh my God.
It also helps, like, yes, it helps you comfort your client, but at the same time, it helps you be better, because when your client calls and they're like, oh my God, the key that they left here, it doesn't work. And I'm sitting here with my button. And you're like, you don't take it personal, because you're like, I understand. Let's fix it, you know? And so it helps on all fronts. But I loved that you were able to like center yourself and recenter and be like, okay, I mean, you literally took every piece of advice I gave you.
And I thank you. I needed it, but it was just like, you can have some information that's being taken to you, but you're going to actually utilize it.
Yeah.
I had to.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's go back to this.
Okay, yes.
you put your plan in action.
Yeah.
You're moving. You're going through all these life changes.
Yes.
You're like, shit, I'm also starting a new career.
Yeah.
And time stops for no one.
No. Yeah.
So I'm going to push forward. I'm going to go out and get this content. I'm going to start doing my thing. But I want to know how you did this without a car. What were you doing?
So, I mean, honestly, Uber. I would Uber if I had a friend that would be able to take me somewhere. It would be like, if I had a friend that would do it, I'll do it. If I had an Uber, I'll do it. It was just more of a way. It was just like, you have to make a way. Like, at the end of the day, I can't use me not driving as an excuse.
Right.
Because people would just be like, that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Why aren't you driving?
Right.
Don't want to have that. Because
Right.
I already talked about that with my therapist. Please.
Right.
Please. I don't want to have to deal with that. So it was just more of like, I would basically get my planner and I would just plan, blah, blah, blah. Like,
which complexes, like, you were going
where am I going to this
Okay.
place? And it would be more of like, I'm very OCD. So like, let's say I'm starting off in a certain area. So I'm like, okay, I'm in this area. Let's start off here. Which place is farther from home? Go there. Then start up at this place, this place.
You
this
geographically mapped
place.
it out.
Go back to home. It was like I was starting like like.
Well, that's so funny because when you schedule showings for clients, you're supposed to do that. And so many people have trouble with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what you're doing.
It's basically, so I'm like,
you're making the shortest route between everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so crazy because people are so good at making excuses. The excuses I hear are unbelievable. And I'm like, don't give them to me. Because I got my license when I was like splitting up with my husband. I had 4 kids, no money, nothing, 38 years old. I had no prior business experience, like literally nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to have sympathy for you if you tell me that you didn't do what you promised because like, it's just the excuses are insane. So I'm like, if you want to do something, you will find a way. So for somebody out there that's like, I really want to get into real estate. It's all I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
But maybe they do drive, but they don't have a car.
Yeah.
It's like, you can make it happen.
You just have to literally just put in the work.
You can make it happen. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
That's what I love about you is that you just did not give up. And in the moment, I feel so many people when they have a big goal like that and they have obstacles in the way as they're climbing over the obstacles and they're moving forward, it feels like so long. Like it feels like you're never going to get there.
It feels like literally you see the tunnel, but it's just like you see like a small piece of light.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, what am I doing? Like,
right.
What is it?
Yeah. And it's so easy to get to a point where you're just talking yourself out of it. Cause you're like, you're like, oh my God, this is never going to happen. You know, I hear that all the time. And I'm like, whether it's real estate or it's anything else, if it's worthwhile, you're going to have to build it brick by brick. And you can't just look at like the big pile of bricks. Just don't look at that. Just one at a time. And one of the biggest things that I see is impatience.
Yes.
And I'm
like, very impatient.
But you found patience in all of it. Like to persevere and just trust the process. Like
that is, well, I feel like you have helped me with that too. But I also just feel like there's been so many times in my head where I'm just like, baby, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is not something that you're just going to have. And I feel like for me, and I feel like there's a lot of people that are like this, it's just like, if you don't see like sudden like gratifications of things, you know, they say within your mind, it's just like, you know, habits.
Right.
You don't feel that's
the instant gratification. You want to quit.
You just don't want to do it. But I had to like put into my mind, it's just like, sometimes those instant gratifications aren't even as worth of just a long time run.
They're not at all. I mean, even with me starting my business, I remember at the beginning, I was like, what am I doing? And I read in an article, somebody that was interviewed, and I remember saying like that 3-year mark is really where you can really step back and evaluate like what you've been doing. Be honest with yourself. Let's be real about this.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for real estate agents too, because you're essentially starting your own business.
Yeah.
I really feel like it takes a good 36 months to get where you've got some good legs under you and you've learned how to be a professional, you're educated, you've got some experience, and then you can really, really hit the ground running at that point. But so many people don't want to wait that long. And it's crazy because if you think about it, you'll blink and a year goes by.
Yeah.
So like for you're almost halfway through that 36-month mark, and you can see.
Well, I'm at the year.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I keep kind of thinking of it like they base it when you made the decision, but
Well, technically, it's a year. Basically, this month.
like a year.
This
year.
is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah.
So think how much you've learned just in the past year.
It's crazy. It's really, and that's why I feel like, you just have to kind of be patient with yourself. You can't be so hard on
Very much
yourself.
so.
Comparing yourself
I
to
agree.
others is also
I
something
agree.
that I've realized within this is like, you can't do because you don't know every other story.
No, and I
within
say
other
this all the
people.
time. Social media, especially when it comes to real estate agents, it is so many smoke and mirrors. You don't know what they're doing. They can say they're top producer, but top producer for their brokerage that month might have been like a $50,000 sale. Like, you don't know. And people post other people's listings, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't know if it's theirs or not. And you look and you're like, oh my God, they're doing so amazing. There's no hope for me. I tell everybody, don't look at anybody else.
Yeah.
Just don't look. Like, you can look for some inspiration
But
real
beyond
fast.
that,
Don't be hanging out on social media just staring at all these other people that maybe they are successful, but trust me, you did not see what they put in to get there.
Yeah.
So you're over here willing to put that in.
Yeah.
Just put your head down and do what you got to do. You're doing that. The other thing I love about you is the poise that you carry, because I'm real big on it. I'm like, this is going to sound real bad. I'm the first person to say I cannot stand real estate agents, because the ones that go out and get their license and think they're just going to come in and be mediocre and take our market share and all of that. I'm like, no. You are a licensed professional. And if that is the case, you need to act that way and you need to be that way. So don't just put on some Louboutins to take a picture and be like, oh, I'm a luxury agent.
Yeah.
Being a luxury agent, that shit starts from the ground up. You need to know how to cater to a client, you have to be humble. You have to understand how to give a concierge level of service and be confident enough within yourself that you can deliver that and not feel like not have a chip on your shoulder about it and all that. And that's what I love about you, that from the beginning you were like, that is the professional that I want to be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight. And the way for you to learn those characteristics and everything, which you need someone teaching them to you. You need a mentor.
It's very important.
You're coachable.
Thank you.
So that is, in my opinion, just the number one thing that an agent needs. They have to be open and coachable.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting in this to do it part-time.
Yeah.
And I always tell everybody, I'm like, people are like, well, do you think I can start out part-time and then transition, whatever? I'm like, is there any way you can do this full-time and work another part-time job? You got to give this full-time. And if you're doing this let's say 40 hours a week.
Well, you were telling that to me when I was basically in the restaurant. You're just like,
but your work ethic, you have had a badass work ethic ever since I've known you. You've never been scared of working.
No.
And you've always made it work. Even if you had to work a double shift and then go meet your friends, you did what you were supposed to do. That's how you had longevity at the places where you have worked.
Yeah.
And that's why your boss wrote you such a good letter of recommendation when you had a blemish on your report. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, for you to have something show up that was, a lot of people would just stop right there.
Yeah.
You were able to go to your manager where you'd been waiting tables, right?
It was my first job. I only had one job.
You worked there for a long time, though.
For like 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That says something about you. That means that you're you are tenacious and you'll commit to something and you'll
Very
see
committed.
it through.
Once I'm in it, I'm committed.
I love it. So all of your big like milestones just in the past year, you got your teeth.
Yes.
You traveled by yourself.
Yes.
You got a real estate license.
Yes.
You moved out on your own.
Yes.
And then we popped your cherry getting you on camera.
Which I was so nervous about. But I feel like it's something I always say. It's just like, and I know within myself, it's just like your comfort zone. And I tell this to myself all the time. It's just like, you want more, but you're too nervous to step out of your comfort zone. And the only way you're going to grow is outside of your comfort zone.
Correct.
But honestly, sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone, like really, you're not even that nervous. Like once you actually step out of it.
Right. It's the anticipation, I think, that is
What,
nerve-wracking.
yes. It's just like, but when the moment happens, it's just like, you're fine.
That's why it's nice if somebody's like, oh.
Yeah.
Thank
it's
you.
just, it's the self-doubt. And I realized there were so many years where I was just like, I would self-doubt. I would just keep myself in a comfortable place. But it's just like, you're comfortable, but where are you going?
All the time. Exactly.
Where are you going?
You're staying right there.
But are you comfortable there? Is how I feel.
I love that.
So it's just like, if you're not comfortable there, but you're not wanting to move from there, so now you're going to be upset with yourself for being stuck there.
So one of the things I feel like you'd be perfect to help clients with is, especially people your age, like your generation, where they're still living at home. Because the average age of people to move out now in the United States is 28. So a lot of people are still at home.
Yeah.
And being willing to like step over that that huge like speed bump
like
or whatever.
A big step. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of like, it's the comfort. It's your home, your parents, but at the same time, like,
right.
You're never really gonna feel that moment where it's like, it's time to go. It's time to do your own thing. It's time to,
So how perfect that you get your license where you can help people do this, and then you went through it yourself.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and now that I think about it, like past time, I've learned a lot. But in this situation, and we would have our meetings and like talk about it all the time, and I would be like, oh my God, this is so much. I would talk to you and be like, I'm so stressed. I don't know. I was just like, I can't do it. And you're like,
one thing at a time. One thing at a time. And then after 6 months, you look back and you're like, I did all the things.
Yeah.
But while you're in it, it seems like so much.
It's like you're in battle within like your own mind, within like the stuff you have to do. It's chaotic.
You always have to I have an analogy that I draw on in my mind, and I feel like there's just always a huge pile of bricks, and I'm like, which brick am I gonna pick? I'll just pick one brick, and I'll deal with this one, and then I'll get another one. I compartmentalize all those other bricks over there.
And that's what you have to do, because I feel like when you just have a bunch of different tasks at hand and you just don't know where to do.
Right.
Well,
I mean, hey, picking one thing and working on it is better than just shutting down, And I am like, everybody has to be so proud of themselves and give themselves credit instead of being like, oh, I haven't gotten to the whole pile of bricks. It's like, did you get to even part of one brick? It's cool. Like it's baby steps, and they all add up.
But do you have the patience to do step by step?
Right.
And that's the only way I feel like it's going to get you to go, is unless like you're okay with knowing like there is a huge challenge.
Yes, absolutely.
But as long as like, I have to just do this little task, and all these little tasks.
So you did all these huge milestones this year. I feel like next year it's the one thing you're going to do is you're going to start driving.
Yes.
Right?
That is very, very, very much yes.
I think it's doable.
It is doable, and it's also, I just feel like it's just within my mind.
Because you have a car.
I have and that's actually, oh Lord, she said it. Yes, I have a whole car.
You have a driver's license and a car.
I have a driver's license.
You have the tools.
I have the tools. It's just more of maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
But
now you've gotten comfortable. You got comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
With all this other stuff. So now I feel like that doesn't seem like that big of a thing
deal
anymore.
Yeah. And I actually, fun fact, I did drive 2 weeks ago. It's a little far.
That's a
But
start.
was it great? It was not amazing. But it was actually just like of trying. Because when I tell you, I did not like, it would be like driving, like sweat is like falling off of like my head. But there's no reason for it.
Right.
Like there was no, I've never been in an accident. There was nothing. It was just.
It's just something in your mind.
So weird.
And you can overcome it.
Can.
I love it. So
it's will.
We're going to check in after you're back. When you start driving, you're like, okay, I overcame my driving fear. And we're going to check in and talk about that because I know it might not be that many people, but I guarantee you there are people out there.
This is for the very small few.
Have you ever met anybody else that doesn't like to drive?
The only time that I had that, like, people that don't like to drive, like, they have, like, a traumatic, like, experience.
Got it.
So I'm, like...
You're just, like,
nothing traumatic.
Your very own league.
That's what I'm saying. It was nothing traumatic.
It's
so just,
funny.
like, I don't know, girl. Like, it's just like, oh.
All right. Well, then this is doable.
But it's also just, of like, with everything, it's just more of, like, it's just, could be, like, for this. It's my first podcast ever.
Exactly.
And I felt so nervous
How bad was it?
It was honestly not bad at all.
It's so easy, right?
It is very easy. Mm-hmm. It's just in your mind.
I know.
Your mind can be a blessing and it can be a curse.
Exactly.
And I refuse to let this mind do
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's Gemini vibes right there. Yes. Okay. Well, this was so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
It was absolutely perfect. And I'm so excited for the world to start to get to know you. And if there's anyone out there that needs apartment locating or any real estate needs, you can handle it.
Yeah.
But you are an expert right now on representing people getting an apartment.
Yes.
So stay tuned for the next one. As soon as Travis starts driving again, I'll get him on here to get an update and hear that story. But you can find Travis on Instagram at, what is your handle?
Travis Harris.
Okay. And you can follow me too. I'm at laura.weisman on Instagram as well. And thank you for tuning in and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.